Now, Acting Police Minister Professor Firoz Cachalia says KZN Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's explosive briefing raises questions about the adherence to established command structures within the ministry. Cachalia raised concerns over Mkhwanazi's actions as well as his appearance in the Special Task Force uniform during the July media briefing. The acting minister is appearing before the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee probing allegations of corruption within SAPS. Newzroom Afrika's Zoleka Qodashe is following the proceedings and joins us live for more. Zoleka, very good afternoon to you. So from what we are hearing within his evidence in chief from the acting police minister, what sense do we get with regards to his views of that July 6 briefing that we got from Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi?
Good afternoon, Katlego, and good afternoon to the viewers. The sense that we get from the acting police minister is that he essentially was displeased with the regalia that was used by the top cop in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, saying that this is not respectful of the structures within the SAPS, but also says that if there are allegations such as the nature that have been alleged by Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, then of course bodies such as the SAPS itself, as well as the Commission of Inquiry that's tasked with investigating these allegations of criminal infiltration as well as political interference in the criminal justice system, and together with the ad hoc committee will be best placed to investigate such claims. But there were also questions around his stance regarding the disbandment of the political killings task team. Now, you'll remember that the acting police minister was appointed by the president in terms of section 91, subsection 3C of the Constitution, that allows the president or empowers the president to appoint no more than 2 ministers from outside of the National Assembly. And so he is fairly new in the portfolio. Despite that, he is seen to be hitting the ground running, also giving the 2 deputy ministers some level of powers and functions in relation to their roles within the police ministry. You'll remember that we previously heard that Minister Senzo Mchunu had not done so, and so it was difficult, particularly for the deputy ministers, to also account to Parliament as per the Constitution. But what he's also attempted to do is highlight some of what he has established thus far. You remember that he also said that he engaged with the National Police Commissioner, that's Fani Masemola, over the disbandment of the political killings task team, and also trying to gauge his views in that regard. He says essentially that he met with the National Police Commissioner, Fani Masemola, to establish what his sense was and whether there was a necessity for the disbandment of the PKTT. Now, you've previously heard that there are disputes around the constitutional provisions in relation to the National Police Commissioner versus those of the minister and the powers that they have in that regard. Now, we know that Section 206, subsection 1 of the Constitution allows a cabinet member who is responsible for policing to establish the national policing policy in consultation with provincial governments. You contrast that with Section 207, subsection 2 of the Constitution that gives the National Commissioner the powers to manage and control the policing service. Now, what Firoz Cachalia says is that these are not to be seen in isolation, and that essentially the Constitution is not to be read strictly in that sense, and that it is a complex matter. And I suspect, Katlego, that at some point it will be for a court to determine in this regard. Despite that, he attempted to gauge the views of the National Commissioner in relation to the disbandment of the political killings task team. So he's been fielding questions from the chief evidence leader, Advocate Norman Arnson, in this regard. Let's just take a listen to what he said was the response by the National Commissioner.
Although he disagreed with the minister's decision, he decided to accommodate the minister's instruction to the extent that he advised the minister to agree that the dockets should be, there was some public reporting that the dockets were in the hands of General Sabir, that he explained to me that he had advised the minister that fine, you've said it should be disbanded, but the docket should be transferred in a systematic, incremental way, so that I assume to ensure that the integrity of those case dockets was preserved. So I now understand more clearly that he had decided, at least to that extent, to agree with the minister, and I understand that in the exchange between the National Commissioner and the Minister who has executive authority, that there is a negotiation, if you like, an attempt to find an accommodation, which is what I think the National Commissioner did.
Now, you remember, Katlego, that when the National Police Commissioner previously appeared before the inquisitorial body, there were questions, particularly by lawmakers, over his powers, given the fact that he was of the view that the minister's directive impeded various constitutional provisions, but also was very much operational because it also dealt with the how question in terms of how the disbandment of the PKTT would be effected, given that there was the word immediately in that directive on the 31st of December 2024. And particularly lawmakers also taking issue with the fact that the National Police Commissioner didn't exercise the power that he believes he has in that regard. And that's why the acting police minister says that he was of the view that despite his utterances that the National Police Commissioner disagreed with the directive for the disbandment of the PKTT, he essentially took measures to give effect to that controversial decision by the minister. And so he then, after engaging with the National Police Commissioner, also says that there was an indication that the things that he was saying were inconsistent with the way that he was acting in relation to the existence of the PKTT. He was asked in particular whether the PKTT was still in existence, and so he said that, in fact, there was the disestablishment of the PKTT. But you'll remember that earlier this year, there was that movement of the 121 dockets that were said to be languishing in the head office in Pretoria and were in the possession of the now suspended Deputy National Police Commissioner for Crime Detection, Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibiya. And so that movement, the acting police minister saying that he does not believe that it was the correct decision for the National Police Commissioner to actually make a public decision or statement to say that the dockets were returning to KZN, despite previously declaring that the PKTT had been disbanded. Let's take a listen.
Now, that was inconsistent with my understanding of what he had conveyed to me, that the team had been disbanded and that the dockets were being transferred according to this disestablishment plan. In addition, I was concerned that this matter also fell within the terms of reference of the Nhlanhla Commission, and the safekeeping of those dockets would also be of interest to the Commission, and the Commission would surely be in a position where it has to issue instructions about how those dockets would form part of the inquiry before the Nhlanhla Commission. So it wasn't appropriate for the National Commissioner to make that public statement before providing me with the written report that I had asked for, after several weeks of trying to understand clearly from him what the position was.
Now, Katlego, there were also questions in relation to whether the decision by the minister formed part of policy or was an operational decision. You remember that those two constitutional provisions have already been thrust to the fore and have been debated at great lengths before the ad hoc committee. And so the minister, the acting police minister, saying that he is in agreement with the former police commissioner as well as the former police minister, Bheki Cele, in relation to the decision being a political one, but also says there ought to have been just consultation or proper consultation in that regard, particularly with the role players involved. You'll remember that that includes Fani Masimula, the top cop in KwaZulu-Natal as well, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, as well as PKTT project leader and head of crime intelligence, Dumisani Khumalo, who's also currently testifying before the Commission of Inquiry that's investigating these claims. And so we expect now that MPs will begin probing the minister and seeking clarity on some of the submissions he has made. And also, we're going to see the ANC's MP, that's Thokozile Sokanyile, starting with that round of questions after the chief evidence leader, Advocate Norman Arnse, concluded his questioning of the witness. So those proceedings are expected to resume shortly at 1:30.
All right, Zoleka Qodashe keeping us up to date with the ad hoc committee out in Cape Town.